All right, so this is, I think this is number 6. Sixth interview. So anyways, today I have a friend here with me who is in the same flight, Samantha. Again, for OPSEC purposes, we will not be disclosing certain information, but only to help those get to where they need to go to. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
All right, so the first question we're gonna ask you, please tell us about your Air Force background, how you got in, and I really wanted you on here because you have such an interesting background that I don't know how you got here. I know you went to OTS, but the thing of it is like, how does one get into your job? It's interesting to me.
Yeah, so I am a 13N, which is a nuclear misslear in the Air Force. So it's really interesting. So nuclear misslears were kind of part of the original Air Force doctrine. So when the Air Force was created, they were like, we're gonna have nukes, and that's just gonna be a part of the Air Force, which is interesting because they used to be married with space. So it used to be space and missiles. Now they've kind of diverged, and of course we have the separate Space Force. But I kind of came in a really non-traditional way. So I did commission through OTS. I joined a little bit later in life, so I was 26 when I commissioned, but I'm not a priority. I was going through school and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. So I moved out of my parents' house when I was 18. Didn't want to go to school at all because I really wanted to make movies. And I was like, you don't need a degree to make movies. But then I was struggling living on my own, and so I decided to go to community college. So I kind of worked my way through community college, met a bunch of different types of people through that. And then I was like, oh, I should, go into a 4-year degree. So I went to Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia. And again, I really loved filmmaking and photography. And so I figured, I can merge anthropology with photography, because growing up I loved National Geographic. So I was like, I could merge the two. And then it diverged even further from there because I had a medical anthropology class that I loved. And I was like, oh, wow, this is really cool. This is something that really challenges me. So after I graduated, I did move to LA for a little while, and I was like, let's see if I can make this filmmaking thing happen. It was a real struggle being in LA.
Oh yeah, it's a different beast up there.
Yeah, I was there for 3 or 4 months, and I personally struggled, and then it was just really hard to, it was harder to get into DC entertainment than it was to get into the Pentagon. And so I was like, wow, this lifestyle isn't for me. Then I had applied to grad school at the same time. So I had applied to Berkeley and Boston University to do forensic anthropology. Because again, I was obsessed with the show Bones. And I was like, that's so cool. And I've already studied anthropology. So maybe I can kind of merge this and do something more practical. Because a lot of anthropology can be theoretical, but I wanted to be able to apply it to something. So while I was going to grad school, I realized I didn't like the publish or perish mentality where you're doing research to be able to kind of stay relevant in the career field. And I was like, I would really love to work for the law enforcement side of things, because we had a detective that we had a class with. So at that point I was like, well, let me apply for the Air Force, because I've heard they always need cops, security forces. And then I also applied to the Alaska State Troopers, because the year that I applied, so that was probably 2015, it was kind of the first time they opened it up to outside of just Alaska. So the lower 48, they opened up the applications. So I applied to both. The troopers got to me first. And so I went through kind of the whole hiring process, and they were all ready to send me up to Alaska to do training. And I was like, well, I feel like I would regret it if I didn't see what the Air Force had to say. My dad was in the Air Force, and he told me, he was like, Samantha, you're not a priority, so you're probably not going to get into OTS. Because I think it was at the time where they weren't really commissioning a whole lot of officers. But I was like, well, I'm going to give it a go and see. So I ended up getting selected for the Air Force. They already knew what AFSC I was going to go into. So the way that I went in, you could rank 1 through 5 the jobs that you wanted. So I had security forces, intel, aircraft maintenance, OSI, and cyber, I think, were my 5. So 13N was nowhere on there. Growing up as a military kid, I think what ended up pushing me into that career field, because I didn't know that later, OTS, you're kind of the last ones to get jobs. If you're not going medical or law, you're kind of the filler from the other commissioning sources. Air Force Academy gets first choice, and then it's ROTC, and then OTS kind of fills it. And so with my military kid background and not having any kind of record, I think they pushed me into 13N, because you do have to have a higher security clearance. You have to have a TS or a TS SCI, which is pretty high up there. And then we're also on PRP, which is the missile version of a flying status. So you're kind of specially monitored because you are controlling nuclear weapons at the end of the day. So I think with my personal background, they wanted me in 13N. And I was really scared when I went to tech school because I was like, this is totally different than anything I've ever done. Like I don't have, you know, an engineering background of any kind. And I thought it was going to be something like that. Like everything was like, even though my degree was a bachelor's of science, it all seemed very arts focused, everything that I'd done up to that point. Missiles kind of chose me. I didn't really have any say in it. I did freak out when I got it. I was about to apply to the Navy because it was all bad press when I went to go research 13N, and it was like all nuclear mishaps, and I was like, man, all of this seems really terrible. But my dad gave me the good advice of like, give it a go, and if you don't like it, you know, try to cross train or you know, serve your time and then go from there. And so I'm glad that I listened to him because it's been a very interesting experience working as 13N.
Before you went to the Air Force, like your AFOQT, how high did you score on yours?
I did well in everything except for the flyer bit, and the flyer bit was the only thing I studied for, and I did terribly on it. So I don't think I was destined for it. I can't remember what my scores were, but I scored pretty high on all of them. And then in school, I always did really well. So I think that did help me get in on the OTS front. Because all through college I had a 4.0, and then in high school I had like a 4.2 because I took a bunch of AP classes. So I'm sure that probably helped too.
So for those who are wondering, like going the civilian route and like you have these degrees, for you to get matched up for your jobs, you need to take what's called the AFOQT, which is basically a test that sees where you are on the spectrum of like math, what is it? Math, English, what else? Like not
it's like deductive reasoning kind of.
They just want to see if you're smart enough is practically what it is, because there's like a lot of analogies on there, if I may, and like I studied for it too, but I never took it, but only because I got direct commission through medical. If I were to cross over, I still need to take the AFOQT. Bigger picture, with your job, how does it contribute to the Air Force and like all the other militaries? Because I'm pretty sure you're just not bound to the Air Force. Now you're like dealing with all these other branches of the military that I don't know. Maybe you might have a little bit more of insight on that.
So 13Ns, we're in charge of the ICBM, which is currently the Minuteman III. So it's a very large ballistic missile. So it's 1/3 of the triad, the nuclear triad that the Air Force, or that the military has. So the Air Force has 2 legs, which is the air side and then ground, which are the ICBMs.
1 second. This is all open source, by the way, so just a heads up.
Not letting any secrets out. And then we have nuclear submarines with the Navy. So that's the 3rd leg that's not with the Air Force. So at the beginning of your career as a 13N, you are just working Air Force-wise. So you're essentially the operator. So they treat us kind of like pilots, even though we're not pilots. So that's why I always joke that I'm a prairie pilot, because we are under the ground in northern bases controlling a weapon system. So we are in charge of a weapon system, but we're not flying. But then further on in your career, like as a captain and into a major, you do start doing a lot more joint planning because, you know, ICBM is going to come into play if we ever get to a really heightened state of war, essentially. And what's exciting right now with the 13N career field is that, so the Minuteman III is very, very old. And so we are working to get a new missile online. And so that was kind of really exciting when I came on in 2016. That was like the big thing is like, oh, we're going to have a new missile. And so people that are looking to commission, this is like the perfect time to be in missiles because you're bringing on Sentinel. And so Sentinel is going to be kind of our new ground-based strategic deterrent is what it was called previously, was GBSD. A lot of it's joint planning for worst case scenario, but we're also here to kind of deter our enemies from attacking us because we have these badass nuclear weapons that could do a lot of damage. And we do continuously test them. So probably people see in the news our tests that we do out of California. And I was fortunate enough to be a part of a test where they randomly pull those missiles from the missile bases. They take off the warhead, but we test it across the Pacific to make sure that it's still accurate and it still works.
That's awesome.
And yeah, keeping it at the unclass level, it is still incredibly accurate for how old it is.
That's insane.
Yeah, which is really exciting.
I guess my follow-up question too is, because you seem like a very sharp and smart individual, like, do you need to be really smart to be in this field?
No, not really. Like I said, like you do, but you don't. Like, I think a lot of it comes with experience. Like, I think I like didn't want this job, like it chose me. But I'm one of those people where it's like, I want to do well at everything that I do, no matter what it is, even if it's not something that I particularly wanted to do. And the more kind of I learned about how important this like leg of the triad is, I was like, wow, we are really important for the security of really the world.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
like we haven't had a world war since we, dropped Fat Man and Little Boy. And so us having those online 24/7, it allows everyone else to do their mission. Because I've had flyers say to me, like, a lot of people don't thank you guys, but because we have got nukes, I can fly my mission every day. I feel like I didn't answer your question. So yes, you have to be smart, but not smart.
You did.
Yeah, because you can learn a lot on the job. So we have alerts, which is when we're underground. So like the flyers have hours, and we kind of have the same thing. So at this point in my career, I have 380 alerts, and that's 24 hours underground. So each of those 380 times 24, like that's how many flying hours I have. So I've learned so much through those reps, which has allowed me to be an instructor and an evaluator on that system.
Which is insane too, because like you don't meet individuals like yourself like on a normal basis in the Air Force, because like they're stationed at very different places, locations, etc. And again, a lot of this is open source. What she does literally keeps United States safe. So I have much respect for you for that.
Thank you.
So we kind of touched upon this just recently when we talked last time. Do you plan on staying in the Air Force? And if so, what are your goals specific to the Air Force? What do you want to do, like, I guess 5-10 years from now?
So I'm still at a weird impasse, which I know for me, it's kind of an advice that I've been given is like once you hit the 10-year mark, you need to make a decision. And so I'm at 7 years in now. And my next, so I'm at Maelstrom Air Force Base in Montana right now. So all of our bases are in cold places and a little bit remote. So there's been a lot of experience with that, and it's the people aspect that has kept me in, because misslears tend to be a little weird because we spend 24 hours underground with another person. So you do have to like adapt, or else you're going to be miserable. And so I've had some really interesting connections with people because you're kind of forced to do that.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, it's such a interesting mission, and you meet such interesting people. I wouldn't trade that for anything. So what's kept me in is the people. I'm going to Kunsan in Korea next to do something a little bit different. Yeah.
When do you leave?
So I leave in March.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I'm super excited.
You have to be excited. Dude, Korea's a fun time, man. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah, so I'll be at the Wing Command Post there, so it's different than what my normal job is, but I'm super excited because it will give me some career broadening.
You're doing a 3-year?
No, it's only a year.
No, but that could turn into a 3-year.
Yeah, so I'm open to it. And so as a teenager, we lived overseas. And so one of the big reasons why I joined was to go back overseas.
Yeah. She's got a good post next.
So I'm hoping to stay overseas. Yeah. So it kind of depends on how this next assignment goes, if I'll stay in. I always intended to stay in 20.
I think you're going to stay 20. Because like honestly, like all the people whom I've ever met, like they've been to Japan, Germany, and also Korea. They ended up, because of their command and the camaraderie there, they end up doing other things because they basically tell whoever they report to, is like, this is what I want to do. And it's like, yeah, sure. And that easy. But then when you're at these posts in the States, it's very different. Like the camaraderie is there, however, just like the morale is low. It's like a weird thing. It all depends on leadership. So, I don't know if it's just like a generational thing with the leadership that's in right now, but I do understand that like we're just having a very hard time right now, like retaining certain people, and to retain someone of her stature, you have to give them. It's a politic game, and she's like, I'm about to get out. Either you give me something that I want to do, or I'm getting out. So it's like one of those things. Okay, we're gonna give you a bone, but when you're there, you do good enough, they'll end up extending you for like 3 years, and it's amazing. And if you play it well, like you do the 3 years, it's like I want to do something else, and it's like, oh, we have this open seat over here. Well, we'll send you to school. Come back to Korea. So it's pretty cool that you're going there. So I'm a little jealous.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
That's so awesome.
Come visit anytime.
I got you. I'll let you know. So far, like you've had like this wide range of. Well, you've had this wide array of experience, both on civilian and in the Air Force, right? Let's say you do end up leaving at 10, which by the time you hit 10, you're kind of like, do I stay in or do I just go ahead and go for the full 20, right? Let's say you do get out at 10 and you have all this experience that you built up with the Air Force. What can you say it's done for you, and what kind of jobs can you do outside of the Air Force? Because you have like this really top clearance. It's like, what do you do with someone of like that kind of stature? Like what can you do?
There are a couple options, and it kind of all depends on what you want to do. So a lot of 3-letter agencies will sometimes, so FBI, CIA, sometimes they'll hire people because you have that higher clearance. Also working with like Northrop Grumman or Boeing, since they do a lot of development. And again, with Sentinel coming online, I do think those people would be looking to hire because I have insight into the system and then also the people that do that system. And I think a lot of people do end up getting out because they do get paid more on that end. So it's nice to be able to have that experience in the Air Force and the connections, because then it can help you get hired by those larger companies on the outside. Yeah. For me personally, I don't know, because it can be a really stressful job. Yeah. So if I left, it probably would be for that, and I would probably try to do something a little bit more mellow. And it might not seem mellow, but again, as a teenager, we lived overseas, and I loved the teachers that I had in the Jodea system. So so I thought about that.
Your options are, here's the cool thing, is like once you leave with your DD-214, you could apply to jobs overseas, and you'll get it like that because your veteran preference versus that of like the general public where they apply and they won't hear for like 2 years. They might not even hear at all. So I think that's the coolest thing, is like, even for me as a nurse, but I do have logistics experience, I can just say yes and I'll get hired overseas, should I go that route. But that's amazing that like you get to do all that. And even for her, and like the common theme that we've been talking about is she doesn't necessarily have to go that route. She has all this managerial experience. Like let's say she wants to whip a unit into shape, like whatever she does in her field, she could do that too. And guess what? Like you've done, like you said you were into films before. She's got, like, well, what could you show us? It's like, dude, you guys are doing it all wrong on the set. This is not how you do it. Yo, it does so much for you, the Air Force, that like by the time, like whenever you do get out, like you'll be thankful. And I think that's the coolest part. So, and with that being said, I want you to talk to the person who's possibly wanting to go down the route of ICBM and tell them, something motivational. There might be times that suck, but you're not going through it alone. And those bonds that you make with people they last your entire life. And so for me, like the big thing are the connections, and we're in such a world where I think we are disconnected with like doing things through the internet and being on your phone and all that jazz. But like, as much as it might bum you out, being underground and not having your phone, you actually get an opportunity to develop really close connections with people. So yeah, if you end up going 13N, one, it's a really exciting time because we're finally moving on from a system that we've had for 50 something years, I think it is. And you'll have connections that will help you later in life, and also probably get exposed to people that you wouldn't think you would ever meet. And the Air Force is great in that way. You also learn the things that you like and things that you don't like, which I think at the end of the day kind of makes you a better person in the end. We're at that, we're pushing FGO, and we're almost at that level of like, we're gonna walk away tactically from what we're doing. And we're gonna be overseeing a lot more airmen, and that's just the general theme of what's going on in the Air Force. You progress to that level. So yeah, everything that she said, take it with a grain of salt. And I hope that anyone who's going down this route, that you guys enjoy this field. Take it from her. She said she's like, I've had conversations with her that you've not heard. That there will be downs in your career, but sometimes like the downs will yield better things coming. She's going to Korea. How awesome is that? And that's in March. That's like 3 months away. So, but besides that, thank you for.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you. But besides that, you guys take care. And if you guys need to get in touch with me, I'm not gonna put her information on there only because like how high profile she is. If you guys need to get in touch with her, get through me and I'll get in touch with her. Y'all take care. Bye-bye. Oh, thank you so much.